Hi everybody, Mike's here. Um, Today I'm going to go over macros with you and how these are going to be used to take control of your nutrition. Alright, so let's go on to slide number 2 here. What exactly are macros? Right, this is a term that's used a lot in the fitness industry. The word's kind of just hovering out there somewhere. Okay, so we've probably all heard of macros. So macros are short for macronutrients. We have our macronutrients and we have our micronutrients. Okay, micronutrients don't contain caloric value. Macronutrients do. So any food that we eat is going to be made up of these macronutrients, okay? Our proteins, carbs, and fats. So basic nutrition states that we need to be in a caloric deficit to lose weight and in a surplus to gain weight. And whichever way we go with this, we need to know what we're putting in our body is effective. So by doing that, we take, let's say we need 1,000 calories, all right? This is hypothetically speaking. Let's say we need 1,000 calories and we're at a 20% deficit. So we've accomplished rule number 1 and put ourselves into a deficit. Now, with macros, we're able to say, how can we make these 1,000 calories that we're at effective or efficient in our body, okay? So that is exactly what macros is designed to do. Moving on, we've talked about it, and that's where our protein, carbs, and fats are. Our body needs a certain amount of each of these because each of these play a vital role in how our body works. So proteins have their own purpose, carbs have their own purpose, and fats are used to have their own purpose. So remember that as we go through this and think of each of them having a job. Think of a car. In a car, you have your gas. You have your gas to get your car moving. You have your oil to keep your car lubricated. And you have your transmission fluid to keep the transmission lubricated. They're all different, okay? But they all provide a function. That is how protein, carbs, and fats work, all right? So let's get an understanding of what each of these really are. So what are proteins and what do they do? Proteins build and maintain muscle tissue. So what are we doing when we're lifting weights and exercising? The goal is to break down muscle tissue. So in order to repair that muscle tissue, we need proteins, okay? So without proteins, it's impossible to build, repair, or even maintain muscle tissue, okay? So this is what makes us really have to think, are we getting enough proteins? We need 1 gram of protein per pound of lean muscle mass on our body, all right? So that is what proteins function is, all right? What are carbs functions? Carbs have one thing. They do one thing, and that is to provide fuel or energy, okay? This fuel or energy is used by our brain as glucose. They're used for balancing blood sugar levels and filling back up our glycogen stores, okay? In turn, those create ATP. We're going to go over that process down the road, but it's going to show you the importance of utilizing carbohydrates the right way so that you don't get fat off of them, okay? Let's go moving on to fats. So when we hear the word fat, we think of two things. Well, most of us think of one thing, that excess fat we're trying to get rid of on our bodies, right? Well, that has nothing to do with the fat that is utilized from food, okay? Fat that we're trying to get rid of can be stored from any source of macronutrient. This fat, when utilized, provides us protection for vital organs, help to stockpile certain nutrients in the body, helps balance hormones in the body. It assists in helping blood clotting if we cut ourselves, not creating of blood clots. Just clarify that, okay? So that's exactly what these do for us. All right, let's move down. I'm going to hit play on here so you guys can get the idea of how this works, all right? So the first thing, this is the whole chain. This process is what our body does with food, And this process takes precedence over anything we do, any other process. Okay, so food is consumed. Food gets broken down into glucose or sugar. Okay, sugar is stored in muscle tissue as glycogen. Okay, right here we have our glycogen, and then you see creatine phosphate up there on the upper right hand. These create glycogen in the middle and creatine phosphate both produce what is called ATP. A little visual there for you, right? ATP is the big bang. This is what allows our muscles to contract, okay? So this whole process is utilized so that we can function as humans. Without ATP, we couldn't move. Adenosine triphosphate is created from creatine phosphate or glycogen. So you see the 4 to 16 seconds up there. Like let's say when we're lifting weights or sprinting is a good example for a good visual. When we're sprinting, we can only go so far before we start giving out. We can't sprint indefinitely. That's because we're tapping into that aerobic capacity, okay? When we tap into the aerobic capacity, I'm sorry, not aerobic. We're tapping into our anaerobic capacity. And what this does is it drains our creatine phosphate stores. So they only last 4 to 16 seconds for maximum effort. After that, it starts functioning off of glycogen and creatine phosphate until creatine is completely diminished. Then if we try to continue that same output or that demand for energy, glycogen will not be able to produce enough ATP to continue, therefore resulting in failure. Now, that whole process, every time that happens, okay, we do this guy. So, at the very end, at the beginning of a workout, you see our pre-workout here, the gas tank's full. At the end of the workout, the gas tank's empty. So think of that, these are our glycogen stores here. This is our glycogen storage down at the very bottom. Okay, I'm going to exit this now since it's open so I can show you with the mouse. So this is our glycogen stores here. We work out, glycogen stores over here become empty. What is that doing? So this is how we're able to utilize carbs for energy, or our body's going to demand energy because of this. So those high carb or those low carb, high protein diets, all that protein you're eating is just being broken down into glucose. That's why when you come off these high protein diets, you retain no base and you blow right back up. You get all the weight back because you've retained nothing. Your body's essentially, it's starving itself, okay? So after a workout, if these are our gas tanks, what do you think we should fill it with? Carbohydrates, right? Not proteins. Proteins are there to do what? Let's go back to that slide. Proteins are to build and maintain muscle, not provide us with energy, okay? So instead of using proteins here, we need to use carbohydrates. That will allow our proteins to avoid being turned in to glucose, right? We don't want our proteins being turned into glucose. We want them to be repairing muscle. So we need to eat carbs after our workout in order to allow our proteins to do their job. Okay, so we understand that we need to eat carbs after a workout so we can utilize proteins. How many carbs? And that's going to depend on the type of workout, how long you've been working out, and your body specifically. This is another class I'm going to teach where we break down everything and get very specific on those macronutrients, okay? And how much of what, how much of where. Right now, today, our goal is to give you an understanding of how this works so you can start to get your idea or your mind wrapped around this idea. All right, so we know carbs are necessary. They refill our glycogen stores post-workout. Proteins do not get used as energy as a result. And as another result, more lean muscle is retained, okay? So carbs are necessary. These gimmick high protein, low carb diets are a joke, okay? Let's go down here. So that's great, Mike. That's what everyone's saying now, but where am I actually losing weight? So we probably all heard of this afterburn effect, okay? Now, the afterburn effect is fat is the hardest to be converted into glucose or energy. So our body is not during working out, our body's not actually burning fat. It doesn't break fat down fast enough in order to be utilized for energy, okay, as an efficient source of energy. So we work out, we refill our glycogen stores, our proteins are going to work, but what does that take? That takes energy for those processes to happen. To repair takes energy. But now, since everything else is satiated or happy, our body says, okay, I just need a small amount of energy to trickle me and repair my body. This is the afterburn effect. This is when it pulls from that stored energy that it no longer needs to store because it's getting everything it needs. It will pull from the fats, utilize them as energy, and we burn the excess fat off our bodies. Okay? That is the basic breakdown of macros and how they work and how nutrition works in our body. Okay? So my goal today was just to give you an understanding of how macros and nutrition works on a very small scale. All right? Make sure that you further your education in nutrition and get to your goals by signing up for my advanced nutrition class, where you're going to learn exactly how many calories you need, how to break those calories down into macronutrients, then how to take those macronutrients and turn them into food. Okay? I'm going to teach you how to track them. I'm going to teach you how to track those nutrients, those macros efficiently, and I'm going to show you how you can continue to make this a lifelong commitment versus a roller coaster ride. Okay? So make sure you guys get signed up for my advanced nutrition class. Have fun with this. Start wrapping your head around it. Go ahead and Google some of this and read about it and see what you can get. Make sure you send me some questions and feedback if you're interested. Awesome. Thank you for your time today. Go get it how you live it. And Mike is out for now.